Hey there, Real Estate Junkies. Before we dive into today's episode, we've got some game changing resources to help you start buying and selling real estate on terms, the smart, creative way. Want to learn how to invest with little or no money down? Grab your free ebook, The 4 Game Plans, and discover the exact strategies we use every day. Get it now. The link is in the show notes. Looking for a complete step-by-step system to start making 3 paydays per deal? Check out the Quantum Leap System, our home study course packed with everything you need to close your first terms deal. Need a personalized strategy? Book a free one-on-one strategy session with one of our coaches. Just use coupon FREE3 at checkout. Ready to take action? Join the 3 Payday Apprentice Program and start working toward real estate success with direct mentorship. Want hands-on training with us? Spend 3 days at our In the Trenches Bootcamp, where we'll work side by side to lock in deals. And don't miss our biggest event of the year, QOS Live 2025. Connect with top investors, sharpen your skills, and take your business to the next level. Secure your spot today. All links are right below in the show notes. Click now and start building your real estate empire. Now, let's get into today's episode.
I had a lot of the coaches on calls with me also, and even afterwards making offers, presenting options. I never did that alone. I always had so I would try to do the research on my own, look at examples that others had done in the community, in the course, or just emails that had sent, or from the coaches from past deals that they'd done. I would try to put things together, and then I would ask the coaches. So I would try to have something to start with so that the coaches could help me kind of fine tune that. And I had a lot of deals that I made offers on, gave auctions that didn't work out. And that's okay. It's not for everyone. You just have to keep going until you find the right one.
Welcome, everybody, to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm Russell Ham on the West Coast. Steve, you're with me on the East Coast. How's it going, Steve?
Big Russell, we have 2 more weeks for the beach, I think, and I am going to experience one of them today.
Cool. We have a special guest with us, Judy Richards, also on the East Coast. Welcome, Judy. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Judy.
Effort me, guys.
Yeah, Judy Richards is part of our Wicked Smart community in the smart real estate genre. And so, Judy, we're gonna touch upon mindset, skill set, and systems, go over one of your deals. But before we do that, why don't you just tell us a little bit before you entered the community, what were you doing, and then why did you choose this type of a niche, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah. So I have been employed in the pharmaceutical industry for about 28 years, and it's been a long and productive career. But I wanted more freedom with my time, freedom with my choices, to be able to do what I want to do. I'm blessed to still have both of my parents, and they're 87, so I want to be able to spend some time with them while I still have them and they're in decent shape. And that's one of the reasons why. And prior to that, I actually was in real estate before the pharmaceutical industry. I did real estate closings for a developer. That's how I entered the industry. Then I went into the real estate foreclosure world of real estate auctions. Then I did some leasing when the market crashed. And then I was a typical broker that listed and sold homes.
Got a lot of different gigs, Judy.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was going to say very different. The reason I ended up going into the pharmaceutical industry after that is I had gone to college and had my degree in marketing, and I was doing real estate, just trying to feel my way around and stuff. But I had it was commission only, no regular paycheck, no benefits, all of that. And I was young. I was in my 20s at the time. So I said, I think that maybe I should get myself like a solid career and with benefits and all of that. So I went that way. And I had some really good luck with real estate that I had purchased and sold on my own, which was primarily my residences. I was able to get out of the capital gains. It was the house hacking thing, what they refer to as house hacking, because I got transferred with my career down to Atlanta and back, in properties that I had purchased. Every time I had to sell them, I made great gains on them. So I thought I need to start looking into this again, especially now that I'm in a better position financially. Student loans are all paid off, all of that.
Did you say in the past, Judy, if I recall an old conversation, didn't you specialize or really work long in the pre-foreclosure kind of thing for a while?
Yes, that was in my real estate auction world, and that's how I bought my first home. I had a banker that we did business with out of New York reach out to me and say, "Hey, we have this house in Portland, Maine, which is where I live, and we have it under contract. However, we have a cloud on the title, and the investors don't want to wait because you know how the investors are; they want to keep turning it and flipping them." So they don't want to wait. Do you think that this is something that you could look at and maybe turn over quickly? So I said, let me go take a look at it. Grabbed the keys, took a look at it, thought, oh my God, this would be a great first house for me. So I ended up looking at the house. I went with my dad, my brother-in-law, and a friend of mine that was a mortgage broker. We went and took a look at it. And they said, yeah, this is totally doable for you. So now I didn't have a lot of money, but I was able to ask people that I knew that had money. So I got enough money to do the renovations. And then I purchased it in my father's name. And then after the renovations were done, I basically went to my mortgage banker friend and financed it as a first-time homeowner.
Wow. You got real estate in your blood for quite some time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I love it. I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, and you got resourceful, which is awesome. We encourage that in the community. Speaking of the community, how did you find Smart Real Estate Coach? And then what kind of attracted you to, again, that niche?
Yeah. So it was all around the real estate world. I ended up hearing from a friend about the Women's Real Estate Investors Network. And I actually listened to their masterclass and I ended up joining and doing some coaching with them, which was all around just like dipping your toe, but not going very deep into anything. So just learning a lot about kind of some of the creative financing things, but not going real deep. And then through them, I heard about Anderson Business Advisors and started setting up some of my LLCs for real estate. And then Zach from the Smart Real Estate Coach community did an event for them. And I happened to be on that. And obviously there was the Northeast connection. I was like, oh my God, those guys aren't that far away. If that's working out here, that's working a little for the North too. So I ended up talking to Zach and ended up joining the community.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, you were one of, when I first started coaching, you were actually one of my first students. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know that.
But you did great. So speaking of that, you're joining the community. You had some real estate experience, right?
Yes.
We've found, Steve can attest to this, that when investors come into our community, they're brand new. They have no real estate experience and they just freak out over the phone. Talk about, again, this is mindset, skill systems, mindset wise, what was it like when you first started? And then how's your confidence now? Like, where are you at now as far as being on the phone and doing transactions?
Big difference, because a lot of times when I purchased real estate, it was for my own personal use. You have that, you're either interested, not interested. I wasn't looking at it from an investment standpoint. And I think because I was dealing with so many other people that I had that fear. And I put my own mental block in place and just had to keep doing it. And honestly, I had to force myself to do it because I wasn't enjoying it. And I have a sales and marketing background. It's not like I'm shy or anything like that. And I thought, oh my God, what really made me push through were the coaches, because they all said, you can do this. I had more background than some of the coaches in real estate. So I thought, if they can get through to the other side, so can I. So I just knew that I had to keep doing it. And the only way to the other side was through it. There was no shortcut.
Do you remember your first live call by any chance, what you were feeling? Do you remember?
I do. I remember, I was like, I hope they don't answer.
Yep.
And then the first time, like the first day when I got people live, I thought they must have thought I was absolutely nuts, just stumbling and everything else. But you know what? Everybody was pretty nice. Did I get a couple jerks along the way? Absolutely. And you know what? I just laughed it off and was like, hey, there's going to be some of those people no matter what you do.
The first time, Judy, that I talked to somebody, I was so nervous. I had the script in front of me. I read everything, skipped over all their responses, and just I just went through the whole thing. I'm like, that's what I learned in the last 6 weeks. I just throw them everything.
I don't ask questions.
How many of the students do you think that when they answered, they just hung up on them right away?
Oh, true.
Yeah, I bet that's more than we think. Steve,
What?
Steve, get into the skill set part. That's where you're.
Yeah. So specifically, Judy, obviously, like where you started with what you explained, your first couple calls full of like anxiety or just stressed out because you're not confident yet, and to where you are now, where you're great in the phone. Like, what kind of things for you were like imperative to being like confident, finding your voice, learning the scripts, being great with objections? Like, what did it take to get from where you started to where you are now?
A lot of role playing with some of my members in the community. We had a role playing group. I think, I want to say there was like 8 of us. And so we would go and choose for a month and then we would rotate. And we just kept doing that. And some of us would talk every day, even if we weren't in the same group, just helping each other when somebody had a rough day or a situation. We would just help pick the other one up. And I tend to have more of an upbeat personality most of the time. And so when I'm down, it's probably something pretty bad. And people in the community sense that. John Bristol, who's come to be a good friend, he called because I think he thought, oh my God, if she's down, she's going to be like really down. And it was just a situation I had that I'd worked so hard towards that. And Steve, you worked with me on that particular one. It was a pre-foreclosure subject to situation. And the seller was in a really tough spot and wasn't always very nice to work with. And then it ended up not working out. He just had gotten too far in debt before he reached out to us. And this is somebody I've been talking to for months, that we should have been in the picture probably 8 months before we were, but he was so far in arrears that it was affecting him, and which he was portraying on to me. And that caused me anxiety because I really wanted to help him, but sometimes he was getting in his own way. So it would make me down, and then members in the community just knew what was going on and would just talk me out of it. Just say, look, you're not going to be able to help everybody. Just keep pushing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you made a point too that it's just more of a skill set piece for everybody. And I'm learning this more and more today because I cold call 50 to 100 people a day with the marketing stuff I'm doing now. And what's interesting is, especially in a situation like Judy had, she had a property under contract, pre-foreclosure, in arrears a bunch, running out of time before the bank was going to take the property. Super stressful, right? Because the owner of the property is receiving letters over and over again saying they're going to take the home. We're trying to go ahead and get this secured and find a buyer. And even though we've given the right expectations up front, that person, the owner of the property, is constantly hitting Judy with really stress-induced messages. And the reason why I brought this up is because same thing, we talk to people all the time, right? If you get an email and text exchanges with people and there's any kind of like emotion really connected to it, you have to get on the phone. Everything's different when you're on the phone. What we do too is I do Google Meet too to get them like that next level, get them to look at me in the face and have the same energy kind of deal. And it works. You got to get people to feel human, because when they're behind their phones, texting, email, whatever it is, you get the chaos. When they can feel your energy, your calmness, you can go ahead and de-escalate and then problem solve. And I think we did that with that guy a couple of times, because I remember you'd be like, look at the messages that this guy just sent. I think he's actually been drinking. Holy, yeah, I'm sorry.
He admitted that he had a few, and so I asked him not to text when he was in that condition.
It's rich. And then when we talked to him a couple of times, he was like super calm and he was like apologetic. But that's that thing when you can't feel human emotion, which is very hard to feel through text. Because when you're texting someone and you're in a bad like headspace, and then you read that person's text in that bad headspace, you choose the tone that it's actually in comparison to what it really is. That's a big piece of real estate and I remember you get properties under contract and you're like, all you feel like you can do is screw it up, because you're on the high of, you're going to get this property under contract, I'm going to sell it. And that any kind of difficult conversation that you have to have, like you want to avoid, because what if this conversation makes them take the property back? But it's those conversations that give you extra time in the market, that settle their nerves, and make them trust you more. It's a lot of emotion in those moments.
Yeah, so it sounds like, Judy, that you had a lot of help. You didn't do this on your own as far as skill set, right? You
No.
made that first call, you were hoping that they didn't pick up, and when they did pick up, you were probably freaking out. But over time, you got better because you brought people in to help. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I had a lot of the coaches on calls with me also. And even afterwards, making offers, presenting auctions, I never did that alone. I always had I would try to do the research on my own, look at examples that others had done in the community in the course, or just emails that had sent, or from the coaches from past deals that they'd done. I would try to put things together, and then I would ask the coaches. So I would try to have something to start with so that the coaches could help me kind of fine tune that. And I had a lot of deals that I made offers on, gave auctions that didn't work out. And that's okay. It's not for everyone. You just have to keep going until you find the right one.
Nice. Just so you didn't pay for a coaching program. They said, here's these videos, go watch them, and then good luck. Because it's not something like that.
No, it was nothing like that. Yeah. When every step of the way, I went in and I did a home office visit where we did calls, got appointments. Steve, you were there for that, and got some appointments out of that. And then I would go to the big events like the QLS and just rub elbows and network with people, never mind the content. There's all the other benefits from it. And then I also I recently went into what they call the In the Trenches boot camp, where I actually brought leads and we sat there and dialed, and I was able to do a live call with the seller a couple of times. I had already sent him an email presenting some options. He got back, was leaning towards one of the options, but didn't particularly like the way it was structured. But we had to make the numbers work. So Zach and I went back, and he kept flipping and flopping as to what was important to him. Everybody that was there in the room listening to this was like, oh my God, he said that on the last call, and now I'm saying this. We're trying to figure out, well, what's important to you? Is it the price? Is it the terms? Is it the time frame? What is it? So we finally narrowed it down, and I'm still working with the guy. And next week, while I'm in Hawaii, I should hear from him if we're going to move forward with this particular deal. So
very nice.
What was it? I'm just curious. Was it, what was he leaning more? Was it like price compared to timeline? Was like where you struck?
Yeah. So at first, the timeline of 60 months was fine for him. It was a free and clear property. It had sailed on the open market as a listing, and it was just sitting there. They've already moved. So I had gone to take a look at it. I was literally at the house while we were doing a 2-hour coaching call, one of the mastermind calls. And I was literally walking through the house and taking pictures while I was listening to the class. Then I hopped in my car and drove down to Rhode Island for the In the Trenches boot camp, and was still on the call for a lot of the ride down there, participating in the weekly call. And it helped because I'm there. I just had this experience. I can run it by people. And then I get down there and we're having a conversation with the seller. I think we talked to him 2 or 3 times while I was there for those couple days, and revised and sent out additional offers while we were there, talked to him again, and then said, okay, now we got to look at it. The numbers we were really having a hard time working it out because he kept flip-flopping. So before I left that Friday morning, Zach and I were on the whiteboard putting together some new structures. And I came back and was fine-tuning it, did a little bit of research on some of the rental comps and things like that, and ran it by Zach again, typed it up. We did it at one of the weekly calls, the mastermind call. We put it up, and I got feedback from Zach and the coaches. Russell was there. And basically I sent it off, gave him a couple days. I saw that he called me. He sent me an email back, said, I like the second option, except the timeline. So I thought, oh God, here we go with the timeline again. It wasn't the term of the timeline. It was actually, he wanted a marketing period end date.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, okay, he feels like he's getting something for that. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fair. So that's the only thing I think that we're going to talk on. He's going to run it by his wife. And if she's on board, I should be able to send him paperwork and sign it up as an AO.
Yeah, very nice. It sounds like you've talked to this guy many times. Right? I tell the students that when they come in, you're not going to get a deal on the first call, right? So you don't need to spend a whole lot of time on that first call. Just gather the information and just keep following up. It sounds like 10, 12 times you talk to this guy. If you're new to investing, it's especially terms, right? It's going to take some time. It's not a get rich and throw out offers and do stuff like that. So good on you, Judy. We're going to get into that type of the timeline with the seller in just a minute. Talk about systems, just real brief, because we need to get going here, but just brief, what kind of systems did you start? Because I know Steve and I it was pen to paper and folders in the beginning, and then we upgraded to CRM, but what were your systems then, and what are your systems now?
And that's exactly how I started too. And just had the monthly folders, and I would just keep filing things and then doing the calls. Then it got to the point where probably about a half a year in, I just had too many read sheets. And obviously with my W-2, it was absolutely insane. We didn't have enough people on the team. So I was working probably 12, 14-hour days there and trying to do this, squeeze calls in here and there. So I was working a lot of weekends. Sunday was my admin day for my own business. And then Saturday was the day that I was trying to get all of my calls in and any follow-ups that I needed to do, whether it was email or sending a letter or something like that. And it was grueling. And then I said, it's time to get a virtual assistant to start doing some of the initial dials. But it wasn't the time to do it until I had the experience making the calls myself. I still have a script in front of me. And what I did is I took all the scripts from the community, depending on what potential type of deal, because obviously the initial script is pretty much the same. And then I have all like different objections there. And I have all these little Post-it flags on it. And I write OF for owner financing, LP. And then I can quickly flip there if there's something. Because as Steve, you know how I had a really hard time, oh God, probably about 8 or so months in, where I was so overwhelmed with my full-time job in this. I didn't have a virtual assistant yet. And I had a breakdown. And I listened to a podcast that you were a guest on. It was a W-2 Prison Break show. And I don't know what it is. I got in my car. I needed to leave my office and my day job. I said, I just got to get out of here. I hopped in my vehicle and I drove to New Hampshire. Which is like an hour away from me. And I wasn't going anywhere in particular. I just needed to get out. And during that time, I put the podcast on for that. And I listened to your podcast. And honestly, it made me so emotional. I actually broke down in tears because it just got me to the core. And it helped me to say, okay, I can do this. I just was at a point where I knew that something had to change. I had to pull back from my W-2 because it was running my life and make some changes. And that wasn't easy, but I ended up saying, okay, I need to get a virtual system and a virtual assistant, and I need to get a CRM now. It's time.
There you go. Well,
so that was the time that I did that. Yeah, it was really a hard time for me because it was at the point where I'm like, am I going to be able to continue doing this? This is so important to me, but I'm so overwhelmed with my W-2 job that I can't. I'm just at a point where something's got to give.
Yeah. I feel that breaking point for everybody is important. I think we all have to get there, to be honest, because that's where you can really evaluate what's been so challenging. Why am I feeling this way? Just all these feelings that you're feeling, but then look at it practically. If I'm going to continue to push forward, what are the most important things that I have to do? And I think the reason why a lot of us hit that breaking point is because it's repetitive and we're focused on getting better. But
you muted.
You just muted, Steve. You're here.
Yeah, we'll edit this out.
You were talking, you just went out all of a sudden.
Now you're muted. Unmute yourself on the new device. Yeah.
Yeah, it's low. So turn up your volume if you can. Talk louder if you can.
No. breaking point.
Everybody has to reach their breaking point.
Yeah. 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 Just talk about louder.
Yeah. I think everybody choose their breaking point eventually, which is like super important part of your journey. I think we're just doing the same stuff over and over again. And I think that gets frustrating because we have some kind of expectation of how long this is going to take. And usually that length of time that we've told ourselves is much longer than what we've told ourselves. And that's that cross in the road where we have to make a decision of what do we have to do to make the most traction and fast. Do we love doing this? Why is it that I'm hitting roadblocks? Where am I hitting roadblocks? What's causing those blocks? That's why we talked about in the past, Russell, about like mental coaches. That's when we needed it. And that's when we used it, right? We got to that end of the road where we were like, enough is enough. This isn't working. I'm not as good as this as I thought I was going to be. This is the most difficult thing ever. I'm not enjoying it. I'm super mean to myself right now, right? When is this going to turn around? When is it that I'm going to be doing deals? All I'm doing is talking to people, not having traction. Then when I do have traction, I get my hopes up and then it somehow falls through, or then I do get properties under contract and then I wasn't able to sell it. All these crushing things happen. But depending on your mentality during this timeline, like if you're positive, if you're like, I got to a point a couple of times, Judy, where when good things were happening, I was waiting for the bad thing to happen. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, all right, I got to take it, but it's not going to sell. Like my mentality sucked. It wasn't good. It was, and that energy somehow manifests itself into that exact thing that you're worried about, right? You're looking at every single day when you have a house on the market, and every day that goes down that you haven't sold it, you're getting more and more desperate, or you're looking differently at buyers that don't fit inside your criteria to move forward with. And you really consider them now. Like I did that on one of my deals and it didn't work out because I was desperate and just wasn't patient. Yeah. But the mentality piece, when you get to that point, in my opinion, that was like the moment when I took off. I was like at the darkest point, needed somebody else's help. I needed someone's help. Hired Dr. Amanda. Half of my problems, Judy, were like early childhood memories of money, relationships, all this guilt I had connected to money from how I was raised in certain things that I never thought about. It never popped into my head. But those were these underlining problems that had nothing to do with real estate that were affecting real estate. Right. And I didn't have the abilities, skill sets to fix these things myself. And I didn't have the abilities and skill sets to be good at real estate. What did I do? I found someone who could teach me real estate. I didn't have the abilities and skill set to master like my mentality. And I was a head case. Who's not a head case that can help me through this? And that's a huge piece. I think we get to an age where we think that we're not like kids, baseball, hockey. You've never seen a team that doesn't have a coach. It's the same thing. It's no different than, and as an adult, and we become like really good at something before we try something new. And we just figure that skill set's going to be transferable immediately. Not easy. You got to put that time in all over again. Russell, what are your thoughts on specifically on that breaking point? We all had, every one of us.
Yeah. So great question. Great. Because we want to transition into her deal, which it took her, and Judy, you're going to get into it, took her 13 months. There's got to be a breaking point. You get into real estate and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to get this deal and I'm going to start making passive income and I'm going to be able to quit my W-2. And we were pushing you, Judy, to like, you started scaling back in your business. You said you were saying or in your job, you were saying yes to everybody, right? And it was driving you nuts. And then you took control, right? And you started pulling back in your own W-2, which kind of helped your mindset. But talk about this. Let's transition into your deal and your mindset going through that, right? Because you did have a couple deals fall through, which mindset wise, you could have said, this is not working. I'm leaving. I'm going to do something else. Your deal, 13 months, and this is going to be a huge deal. Steve, we talked about this deal on our last episode a couple of weeks ago, and there's more to it. We thought it was just land. There's actually a house on it, which this is going to be more profitable for you. Judy, talk about this deal, your first contact with him. It's probably when you were one of my students, right? I think when you were with me in the 90-day jumpstart, maybe. But
Just after that.
just after that, okay. So just right after you upgraded and moved over, you talked to this guy. So describe the deal, and then let's get into the meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point to bring up to Russell is that everybody thinks it's going to happen that fast, and you get out of it what you put into it. And what I put into it ebbed and flowed for a long time, because there were times when, like I was just saying, I just didn't have a lot to give. I never let go. I still worked it, but I just didn't have the abilities to make calls a week or 100 something. I didn't have an auto dialer. I'm not a real tech savvy person, so I didn't have one of those speed dialers and stuff like that. So I was manually doing everything. And this was when I was doing the manual system. This was about 5 months in. It was July of 2023 that I reached a seller. It was actually the wife, and it was an expired listing that had just come off the market. They had it under contract, and they had a really bad experience with the buyer's broker and the buyers. They kept coming back and nickel and diming them. And, they thought that they had a certain amount. And then that wasn't the deal that they had originally thought they were getting. So they just said, forget it, and walked away and didn't want to list the property again. So I made initial contact. We talked. She was interested, gave her a little bit of information. We talked a couple times, and then I think that they were just thinking that, maybe they could sell it on their own. So I don't know if they officially went for sale by owner. I think it was just some connections they had. That didn't work out. And she would just reach out every once in a while, and we talked, and I would just say, okay, if it doesn't work out, give me a call. They ended up calling me back, and I still would just touch base and leave a message probably every other month, something like that. Then in February, she reached back out and said, look, we're going to be going to the Philippines for 2 months. I really want to talk about this. Can we talk? So we started, and I got Chris involved in this. He was my coach at the time. So I got Chris involved, and we had a call with them. It's a single family home, and it has a separate deed for another 7.7 acres. So it's a house with 2.3 acres and another parcel of land, 7.7. So Chris and I had conversations. They wanted $250,000 out of this. So
$250 down.
$250 down, yes. And
sorry, so this backstory, this is a free and clear home, right?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep. So they wanted $250,000 down, and then they would finance the rest for 5 years. So Chris and I talked to them, and the only way that we could do this was for them to go out and get a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. So that was their homework that they were going to do. It was getting closer to their trip. She was getting all flustered, and she said, you know what, we're just going to wait till we come back. So I said, okay, let me know. Because I had sent them paperwork and all that. Again, a little bit of a letdown, because you think you've been working with someone for so long, and then now there isn't anything. So they got back, didn't hear from them, knew that they were back. And then I got a message saying, can we talk again? Can we resume discussions? So we did, talked, agreed on terms with Chris, sent them the paperwork, told them they needed to go out and get the HELOC, went up to meet with them, and they decided that they didn't need the money down. They owned some other land and a few other things they could do. So they decided to just do a straight owner financing deal for 5 years.
That is fantastic. So that's just the house alone, right? So 5 years, Steve, this is principal only payments with no money down. So the profit margin on this is infinite.
What's the payment?
Steve, you did again, I think.
Yeah, I think the payment is $1,300 around there.
Yeah, $1,379 a month.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, so we have this. So when Steve and I talked about your deal, we were talking about the land part of this deal.
Right.
So I didn't know that you had this house and that you were going to do owner financing just on the house portion. Now, so what's the potential profits on just the house alone? What's the potential profit if it goes full terms?
If it goes full term, it's about $175,000.
Okay.
We pay days.
Yeah. So we're talking about, and we said this in our episode last time. Would you wait if you knew? Would you wait 13 months to get a $177,000 deal? Now, on top of that, you have this separate deed of 7 acres. What could you do with that, hypothetically?
Chris and I talked about that when I was at the In the Trenches boot camp. He gave me some questions to go ask the town. And I was actually at the property getting the keys from the seller and doing the inspections. I drove over to the town, asked some questions, went to a couple of different departments, got all the abutters so I could actually sell it to one of the abutters, got some minimal lot sizes and just some basic information from the town, could potentially get 2 or 3 lots out of it, depending, and then maybe potentially subdivide that into 2 or 3 lots, could sell it with this if somebody wanted the extra acreage. So it has different options, or just sell it alone as that. And then if it ends up being nothing that we could really do anything with it, we can deed it over to the buyers or someone else also. So there is the potential with that also. And Chris had me reach out to a couple of surveyors that we were going to talk to together. And I did, what I happened to know from some past dealings. And I had sent him the lot plan from the town. I can't believe the research that he did and got back to me late yesterday afternoon with. I haven't even had a chance to talk to Chris about it.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Yeah, what a great deal. Life-changing, right? You're wanting to leave your W-2. Hopefully no one in your W-2 hears this. But at some point, you're just like, so a deal like this, and you get it sold, and it's just life-changing, right? And you just stuck to it, right? It was just, we talk about resilience, we talk about grit, and just staying with it. So if you're listening to this and if you're in the community, which some of our community members listen to this podcast, just stay with it, right? I stayed with it. I was able to leave my W-2. Steve stayed with it. He was able to leave his W-2. This is life-changing stuff. That's awesome. Judy, this is a cool down period. I know you're not going to be able to go to QoS, which I'm very sad. Steve and I are both sad.
You're actually going to Zoom me in for a segment on Monday.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, physically, we wanted to see you.
Yeah.
And maybe have an adult beverage here and there. But describe QoSs in the past that you've been to, the benefits of that, right? And then just how could, if someone wanted to reach you, if someone's up in the northeastern part and they wanted to maybe get a hold of you, how would they do that? So just talk about QoS first, and then how could somebody get a hold of you?
Yeah. So with QLS, the first QLS I went to, I was about 5 weeks in to the whole program, Smart Real Estate Coach. I was in the 9-day jumpstart. I went there not knowing a soul, just took a blind leap of faith, attended, and just started meeting people, and went down, and they had all the vendors set up so that you get to meet all these people that can help you with your business, with just life things too. When you start looking at the people that do the bank on yourself and shred and all of that. So just knowing and meeting these types of vendors, I was inquiring about the CRM platform. So just different things that I was looking into. And then you just sit at a table with people. I didn't know anybody, introduce myself. And then they start going up on stage and start doing some of the teachings and having people come up and talk about deals. And it was pretty inspiring and motivating to see people up there doing some of these deals, and just started meeting people. And the night before QLS, there was a gentleman that worked for Chris at the time. His name was Ben from the West Coast.
Yeah.
He was the one that had been talking to me about going to QLS and maybe joining one of the other programs. And we arrived at the hotel around the same time. He had texted me and asked if I was there yet. And I said, yeah, I just rolled in and settled in my room. He's, I'm going in town to meet the group for dinner. Do you want to join me? And I said, if it's like the coaches and you guys have business to talk about, that's okay. Go ahead. And he said, no, seriously, they're just out and stuff. So I went down and all you guys were out, and I met all of you guys, and Steve's like, oh no.
Drinking heavily.
Anyways, Steve was literally out.
It was the early part of the evening.
Oh, he wasn't out yet.
Exactly. It was and then I met Rick Abbiani, one of the coaches, and started talking to Rick. I had seen him featured on some of the mastermind, and we were just in a general conversation. You know how Rick's kind of low key and stuff. And I said, if you had a chance to do anything different, what would you do? He said, I would have gone from the 90-day jumpstart right into high six.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, that's interesting. And so I had that in the back of my mind during this meeting. And then when they started explaining all the different programs, because truth be told, I didn't even really know all the different levels of the coaching that they had. I went behind the green curtain to talk to Chris. And I said, you know what? We talked about it. And I said, all right, I'm in, all in. This is what I want to do. I know it might be a little bit of a challenge with working full time, but I'll figure it out. And
yeah, that's fantastic. It's life rewards action. So you took action and you have this big deal coming up and possibly could leave your W-2 because of that, right? Because now after this deal, this usually in the community, once you get one deal or you get two deals, all of a sudden it's like a train. Just the deals keep coming. So I wish you the best of luck on that. If someone wanted to get a hold of you, Judy, how would they be able to do that?
they can email me at judithrichard1@yahoo.com. Probably the best way. I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Is one as in the number or spelled out?
Spelled out one or?
Limited number.
Okay. Awesome. Judy, it was a pleasure having you on. This is great stuff. Have fun in Hawaii. Super jealous that you're going to Hawaii, but enjoy it. We'll see you on the screen for QOS. In fact, I think we're going to have you on a panel as you're in Hawaii, right?
I'll make sure I have a good background. I'm sorry I won't get to see you guys. I'll miss seeing you.
Yeah, you'll have a couple of palm trees in the background. Yeah, we're going to miss you, and we'll enjoy your time there. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Judy. Take care.